Hello and welcome to my channel. Ever wondered who pays GST when you're renting commercial property from an unregistered landlord? Let's demystify that. Under the reverse charge mechanism, the registered tenant steps in to pay GST. Here's how it works and why it matters for businesses. This change stems from Notification No. 09. 2024 Central Tax Rate, dated the 8th of October, 2024, which came into effect on the 10th of October, 2024. It introduced Entry 5AB under RCM, making tenants responsible for GST when renting from unregistered landlords. Let's break it down with a table. First, we have Scenario GST applicability. Who pays GST? If the tenant is registered and the landlord is unregistered, then yes, the tenant needs to pay 18% GST under the reverse charge mechanism. If both the tenant and landlord are registered, then yes, 18% GST is applicable under the forward charge mechanism, which is basically the usual mechanism where the supplier, in this case the landlord, charges GST. If the tenant is unregistered and the landlord is registered, then no GST is payable. Finally, if both the tenant and landlord are unregistered, then no GST, nothing applicable. NA next. Let's talk about ITC eligibility. If the tenant is registered, then yes, they can claim the ITC provided the property is used for business purposes. Otherwise, no ITC is allowed. And finally, if the tenant is unregistered, then ITC is not applicable. So what does this all mean? This amendment essentially shifts the GST burden from the landlord to the registered tenant. They must calculate and pay the 18% GST on their own, which is basically over and above the rent that they're paying to the landlord, directly to the government under the reverse charge mechanism. But a silver lining here is that they can claim the amount paid as input tax credit, which is ITC, if it's used for taxable business purposes. Let's put it into real terms. Suppose a registered business rents a commercial office from an unregistered landlord at 30,000 rupees per month. The tenant has to pay 18% GST, which is 5,400 rupees directly to the government under RCM. So now the tenant has to pay 30,000 rupees plus 5,400 rupees equals 35,400 rupees. Out of this 35,400 rupees, the tenant can claim 5,400 rupees as ITC, thus lowering their net GST outflow. Why did the government make this change? Previously, when the landlord was unregistered, it meant no GST was collected, which created a loophole that people were using to avoid paying GST. The RCM rule closes this loophole and ensures that GST is paid even when the landlord is not registered. Moreover, similar RCM rules already exist for residential dwellings used for business purposes. This came into effect on the 18th of July, 2022. For those who are wondering, under these new rules, if you're a tenant, you must review your rental agreements carefully. If you're in a position where you need to pay GST on the rent, compute the amount correctly each month and pay it via GST-3B under the reverse charge mechanism. Keep all your supporting documents handy to claim ITC, which is input tax credit. And finally, track your cash flow. Remember, GST is paid separately from the rent and it's not added to the landlord's invoice. We hope this video provided some clarity on the new changes to the RCM rules for commercial rent. If you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more informative content on GST and other tax updates. Stay tuned for our upcoming videos. It's a valuable resource to help you stay on top of your GST obligations. And finally, if you have any questions or comments, drop them below. Thanks for watching. Until next time!